Hi guys, this is Steve Cordy for BlueFirePoker. So I'm going to be reviewing a session I played the other day. 6 tables of 100 NL, I think they're all in euros. This is on the iPoker network, so it's not something I play all the time. I play there now and again. So the hands I've got on people are sort of spread over a period of time, so I've obviously got like some reliability, but I'm not completely reliable. So I'll just get into the action and take it from there. Just before I start though, like this is the first recorded sweat session I've done for BlueFire. The previous videos I've done have been either like reviews of hands from my replayer or concept videos, so yeah, hopefully it'll go alright. I'm a bit concerned about the sort of pace of the action and whether it's going to seem slow at points, so hopefully the more of these I do, the better feel I'll get for it, etc. So please bear with me in the first one. So we've got a couple of hands straight away before I even run it then. I'll call this table 4 here, bottom left, what appears to be a tight player is squeezed pre-flop, follow my cut-off raise, tightish, we've got a 3-bet of 6%. The other thing is I normally use a more detailed HUD than this because of the setup of these tables. I've sort of tried to minimize it into something like a bare bones HUD, if you like. So I felt like calling pre-flop was okay against the squeeze from the blinds, and obviously with top pair, top kicker facing this C-bet, I'm gonna be calling. And on table 5, so middle, bottom middle, another tight player has opened in a small blind against my big blind, and so I called pre-flop and called the flop with top kicker, top pair, with top pair, good kicker, and now he's bet lending me on the turn. Like I said, I can see these guys are playing 16-14 and 16-10 respectively, which is obviously far tighter than the average, but I don't have many reads on them other than that at this stage. This guy here up on table 1, Faust, in setting up these tables, I played a bit of heads up with him, so I've been playing like for about 20 minutes before running this video. And so hard to tell really because it was heads up, but you know there's a bit of 3-betting going on, etc. So I think there's one spot in which I make an adjustment according to that later on. So on table 4, I call on this interesting turn really. It's not terrible for us, obviously completes some hands that he can have, but we're just going to see what he does. And on table 5 I've called his turn C-bet actually. Just table 2 then, I've gone for a 3-bet bluff there on the button against the cutoff. I'll just take a minute to explain a bit about the HUD then. So I've used prefixes to make it a bit easier. Obviously this is VPIP PFR, total number of hands, the 3-bet number from all positions at 10, full versus 3-bet at 73%, and a 4-bet ratio of 4. I've removed the decimal point there just to make the HUD a bit more legible. Then I got fold versus 4-bet, c-bet on the flop, c-bet on the turn, one when saw flop and went to showdown. So fold versus 3-bet of 73 makes him a candidate to 3-bet bluff. 4-bet ratio up at 4 is not ideal for it though. But like I said, trying to sort of build a bit of history, and I think I've been relatively quiet up to this point, other than some plays heads up. So on table 4, I mean, I think his bet sizing here is really quite interesting. I mean, this is not a solid read, but I think like with something nutted, like, you know, an ace-high flush, he's going to be looking for more action than that, than the bet size of you know, more than half his remaining stack, like sort of 70% of pot or whatever it is. So it tends to like lead me to remove some of those more nutted hands from his range. Also with like a set of jacks or something, I think he's going to be a bit more wary of the flush, and I don't think he's going to bet such a large amount necessarily. So yeah, by no means a solid read, but tends to remove just a few of the more nutted hands from his range. And if he was like making a bluff here, like a semi-bluff with say the ace of hearts and the king of clubs, something like that, I think he's more likely to make a bet size like this. I'm not necessarily saying it's good, but yeah, so without much history, I decided to get it in there. And it's interesting on table 5, so it's a pot size bet, but it's just what was remaining in his stack. So even though blind versus blind, you've got a very strong hand here against what seems to be a tightish player, because the flop was very dry. Like, you know, I mean, obviously, I suppose he could be doing this with Queen Jack, but yeah, there's not a huge amount of chance he's bluffing, but just the fact that it's blind on blind and it's a pot size bet and it was just all of his remaining stack, just feels a bit ridiculous to fold a hand as strong as this. Although I'm not particularly happy about it, just because of the dryness of the flop. Like if the flop was two-tone, then he could be feeling like he's barreling me off a flush draw. I think we got a call and hope we're up against something like Queen Jack. I get 4-bet on table 2, so just got to give it up. And he does have like a backdoor. He has a gut shot straight draw with a queen eye flush draw. So I mean, yeah, I think it's a bit thin. I mean, even his turn call might be a bit thin against the range for me shoving there. So it's a hand to take a note on. Not sure I like his play really. I suppose with his turn bet, he feels like he's folding out, you know, pocket pairs lower than jacks, 8s, 7s, low 10s just got there, 9, 10 just got there. You know, he's not going to fold. Jack 10's not going to fold. So yeah, I don't really like his play there, I think. Oh, so yeah, so in a blind battle, just because, like, I mean, this is a bit thin, perhaps to 3-bet this. mean, it's okay for value, but I'm 3-betting this with the intention of stacking off to 4-bet, just because we've had a few 3-bets going on, and you know, he's going to probably be showing a reasonably high 3-bet number for me on his HUD because of that. Yeah, so I'm 3-betting, expecting him to 4-bet me light, and then I can jam with a hand that it's not over the moon to get it all in, but we're going to get enough folds from his 4-bet bluffs, I think, that combined with our all-in equity is going to make it worthwhile with a dynamic in which we've been 3-betting each other quite a bit. You know, call-in would be fine too, obviously, in position. So 3-bet here versus from small blind versus the cutoff. So this guy is folding to 3-bets 74%, with 4-bet ratio of 3. If I hover over this HUD during play, we'll see exactly what his 3-bet was. So I think it's okay. I'm going to get a fair amount of folds pre-flop, and when called, I'm going to be called by some hands that I dominate, like weaker jacks and some weaker suited aces. Calling would be fine too, obviously. But at the moment in my game, I'm just tending to veer towards the more aggressive line from the blinds. I'm not suggesting that's necessarily the best way to go. It's just that's what I'm intending to do at the moment. Sort of when out of position, either folding or 3-betting my more marginal hands. Though I'd never fold this one from the small blind. Yeah, it's an interesting flop, this one. I mean, I've got a gut shot obviously in 2 overs, but it's a flop that sort of nails his calling range quite hard. He's going to have a lot of 1 pairs or better, plus like weak 1 pairs with a gut shot, or just a gut shot that he can stick around with and put me in maybe in a difficult spot on the turn, not knowing what to do. So I think just like check giving up is probably best. And a diamond on the turn obviously makes it even more difficult for me to get a fold. Just missed what happened there on table 1, so I'll just skip back a bit. There it looks like I've opened from the small blind. And on table 4, we've got a guy limping, so gonna assume he's a fish. He's all weirdly stacked though, a third of a bit of a buy-in, and he's not like exceptionally loose on the what is only 24 hands, I suppose, so not enough to make a deduction. It's not as if he's playing like 60-10 or something. But with a hand like this, it's like I think I can like make a small raise and try and increase the size of the pot that I'm playing with a fish with what is ahead of his limp calling range, in all likelihood, assuming you know, that's just an assumption taken from the average of people who are going to limp in the cutoff. So on this flop, like obviously I'm not getting an ace or a better queen to fold. Like betting is going to achieve something in that it sort of protects my hand a bit. Might get a call from a weak flush draw, but equally might get raised off by a weak flush draw, and so I think like check calling is reasonable. Can tend to turn my hand face up. Bet's less than half pot there, so certainly not folding. So I get a call from the limper, so just gonna take a stab as a bluff around half pot. Sure, he could have limp called with an ace, but he's also going to be doing it with random non-paired hands, and I think we're just going to get a lot of those to fold. Yeah. He doesn't fold though, so whilst he could have a flush draw, I'm just going to have to give up with given his stack size especially. Bet the value on table 1, so perhaps that'd be a note to make that his, like he didn't bet the turn, so tend to remove aces from his range, and also he may have called that river with an ace, so like betting less than half pot probably is a bluff there. Maybe I make a note, I don't remember. So I don't know at this point how many lessons I'm gonna make out of this recording. Maybe 1, 2 or 3, we'll just see how it goes. Yes, this is a skin on the iPoke network. So got these annoying things in the corner of each table. I've not yet taken the time to figure out how to remove those. It's alright, you sort of get used to them. And like sort of the colours are nice and bright on this site. Looks a bit strange at first, but everything seems reasonably clear to me. So just making a note on this guy that he having 3-bet ace queen offsuit from the big blind. He c-bet the flop as a bluff and then decided to barrel off when he's like picked up some equity. So that's an interesting, an interesting note, relevant. Like a lot of people are just going to check with their equity on the turn there. Some people might not even barrel bet the flop. And the size of the bet you use as well is obviously relevant. Yeah, my spelling's not as bad as that. I just trying to make a quick note. I'll be able to figure out what it says afterwards. I think like the first few notes I make in this session, I keep them on the screen for you, just so you can see the type of notes I'm making. Can be a bit annoying though, so later on I think I just do them off screen, So versus under the gun +1, 23-19. I mean, calling here is going to be fine, and probably the play I'd employ most of the time, but like 3-betting as a bluff, I think with these sort of hands is reasonable. It's not something to do all the time, the best situations to 3-bet as a bluff are going to be when you're in the button, so your position, or when you're 3-betting against a steal attempt. Obviously because the early position raises are much stronger, but in doing this, like, we do have a stronger perceived range than if we were 3-betting as a bluff against late position, and so we're going to get some like better aces just to fold pre-flop, and we're going to get a fair number of folds pre-flop, more so than if we were 3-betting against late position. Whereas if we were 3-betting against the button, yeah, we're more likely to get called by ace-9 and ace-10, that type of thing, than we are versus early position. And like when we get called because of our strong perceived range, that can go in our favour post flop. For example, on a king high board, whereas like our opponent is often gonna not float us with an underpair, whereas if he was in late position, he's often going to float us in an underpair because he perceives our pre-flop range as being weaker, and rightly so. So I'm trying to just capitalise on the strength of my perceived range when 3-betting versus an early position raiser with these type of bluffs. And I don't tend to go crazy with them, but just something that I'm going to use from time to time. And whilst we got the positional disadvantage post flop, like I said, we've got our strong perceived range in our favour. We've got the initiative. So yeah, it's like, especially if you don't 3-bet bluff that often. So if you're showing your opponents a low 3-bet number, like typically when you want to start 3-bet bluffing, you're going to do it in the more typical spots against the steal or when you're in the button. But doing it again in these like slightly less orthodox spots versus early position from the blinds, if you're showing a low 3-bet number to your opponents, your perceived range is just going to be really strong, and you're going to get a lot of better hands to fold. You're just going to get a lot of folds pre-flop or on the flop. Yeah. So I could have 3-bet the king-queen suited for value on table 6. I'm going to get called by weaker kings and weaker queens because I'm 3-betting versus a late position steal. Just to sort of mix it up, I'm just going to call. And also, this is the guy that I had a bit of 3-betting history with, so the king queen's not a hand that I'm happy to stack off with if I get 4-bet. So I think that I am going to get 4-bet bluffed by him a fair amount. So, but I'm not quite solid enough in that read to 5-bet jam my king queen over him, which is different to how I felt about the pocket nines when we were blind on blind a little earlier. On table 1 we do get 4-bet here, so just going to have to give it up. When he checks back on table 6, obviously you could have hand of showdown value, ace-x, probably going to be the most likely, I would have thought. But with with the equity we had there, if we'd faced a check c-bet, we'd have probably check raised as a bluff. So when we get this flush on the turn, when we lead out, we're often going to get called by like an ace-x, and there with or without the spade. But just going to have to settle for a small pot. So decide to call here versus the 3-bet from the blinds. I've just got a 3-bet number of 8 that I can see so far. I don't know if I've used his pop-up yet. I should have done really, to see how often he's 3-betting from the blinds. 10-8 suited is a playable hand though in position, so unless he's like super tight, then I think it's okay to call from time to time. We get a great flop. He checks to us. So yeah, it's a board that he's going to be giving up on with ace-x often enough. So I think just betting, and we're going to take it down a fair amount, and frankly, even if he's making a check raise attempt with an overpair, it's reasonable for us to get it in here. We're going to be roughly 50-50, and if it's great if he's check raising as a to get it in with something like the ace queen of clubs. So I make a 3-bet on table 6. Like calling would be fine too, but this is the guy we saw 3-bet us a little earlier from the blinds to squeeze. Don't really have enough history to want to induce a squeeze with this type of hand. So I'm 3-betting as like a semi bluff. I know I'm just going to get a lot of folds pre-flop. And on the flop, I'm often going to take it down with a c-bet, so he does check raise on table 5. So we're just going to have to get it in, basically. So we did have jacks and get there, so it was nice. So yeah, I'm still getting used to the just the maneuverability, clicking the buttons and stuff. I think it nearly costs me at some point. I nearly get timed out, or I do get timed out, I think. Okay, what happened there? So we've opened pocket 8s on table 2. We've opened pocket 8s and got called by the button, and I decide to c-bet. I suppose check calling is going to be fine too. Problem with c-betting is we're going to get bluffed sometimes. We're obviously not getting a jack to fold. But it's just going to sort of, it's for a little bit of value. We might get called by a weaker hand and a little bit of protection. But check calling, I think, is going to be fine too. So we get raised here by the looks of it. So value hands you could have. So sets, obviously, set of jacks is slightly less likely, maybe more likely to 3-bet that pre-flop. 4-5, another value hand. But I don't think the one pair value hands like ace jack are going to be 3-betting here, like at least without any dynamic. It might be a good play with a dynamic in which he's been raising me a lot, and he's then trying to merge his range to include more value hands than just sets and 2 pairs. But we've not got that dynamic, so tends to polarize his range between strong hands and bluffs, and if that's the case, then our pocket 8 sort of transposes into like a jack X, if you like. We could be wrong, and he could be raising here with like a jack 9 type thing, looking to take the initiative in a way that allows him to get the showdown, like check, back, turn and river. That happens from time to time, but certainly, is non-standard. I would say calling is going to be more standard for him. So I think calling is okay here. We're going to build up some history, but folding is going to be fine in this spot too. So I do decide to call, and we get a turn that's not great. It's quite likely that that's just improved his hand. So I think he decides to check back. and we just got to hope to check it down. And hopefully he's on a flush draw. Well, I would expect a fair number of his flush draws to have continued on that turn, so he did have the ace high flush draw, so it's interesting that he raised the flop with an ace high flush draw. Like oftentimes people with the showdown value of the ace high are just going to call there. It's also interesting that he didn't barrel the overcard on the turn. I'm not saying it's bad for him not to barrel it, but it should tell us a bit about him. So yeah, like in his scenario there, calling would have been fine. I mean, if he is raising the flop, then he should be looking, in my opinion, for opportunities to continue to bluff post flop, because our hand does turn itself pretty face up when we call there. We've got like Jack X or an under pair at best, and so I think he should definitely be actually using the turn cards to barrel. So on table 3, I think I open. It's not like a standard open under the gun, but we are a player short, so we're down to 5 players. So we're like under the gun +1, and the blind is this tightish player. So we're going to get slightly more folds than average there, I feel. I'm also like looking behind me to see what the 3-bet tendencies of players behind me are, and we got a 3-bet of 1%, so we're not going to be getting 3-bet bluffed, so we can widen our opening range a bit. I think this was just a limped pot on table 1. So we've got a fish here under the gun, and what looks like a fish on the button too. The opening 8's under the gun, and we get called by a guy 26-3, so obviously a weaker player. And on this type of board, I'm just going to be c-betting. Table 3, I've opened from the small blind against the big blind. And on this 1 high card, 2 low cards, rainbow, I think a c-bet bluff is going to work enough of the time. We've also got backdoor diamonds. Not a great turn card on table 3. If he's floated with ace X, having picked up a cut shot, he's probably going to call again. A lot of the 5X's, like a 5-6 or a 5-4, picked up a lot more equity. I think it's probably best to give up there. We got called on table 4. The turn brings the queen of diamonds, so it's hard to say really. Feels thin to bet. I think perhaps check deciding, leaning towards a check call. It's probably best. So there we check call, and he's just checked back. Well, first he's called and under the gun raised with king 6 suited, so you know that's one of the reasons why I didn't really have a 6 that highly in his range when I check called the turn. Yeah, but also he's checked back his trips there when he should have been betting for value on the river, so pretty weak. I'm 3 betting on table 2 ace queen suited for value, and I'm doing that with a hand as strong as that against a guy who's showing a 4-bet number of 4. Probably going to be looking to 5-bet, get it in. So like, you know, again, like I feel like I'm going to get enough folds from his 4-bet bluffs combined with the equity that I'm going to have when we get it in, even though I'm not chuffed if I 5-bet and he calls. That sort of equity versus the pots I pick up when he folds his 4-bet bluffs, I think makes up for it. So I'm guessing that was my intention here. Table 3 against the tight player, button versus his cutoff. He's got a very high full versus 3-bet number of 84% and a very low 4-bet number of 1, so he's not going to be 4-bet bluffing us, it seems. So I take a hand that's quite playable and make a 3-bet bluff. He's reasonable. I'm going to get a lot of folds, even though his pre-flop opening tendencies seem quite tight. I mean, he's still with that, he's still folding 83% of the time to 3-bet, so I think a 3-bet bluff in there is reasonable, and we get an awesome flop. So yeah, given this two-tone, I think we've just got to bet and try and get as much money in as possible. If it was rainbow, might look to get tricky and check this back. The problem with doing that is like a card that can like kill our action, like an ace or king or something like that. If he's got, say, something that would have otherwise called on this board, could like a scare card for him could come on the turn. So, but especially with a two-tone flop, I think it's just best to get this in. Look to get it in anyway. So I get called on table 2, which is great, and we're obviously ahead of his pre-flop calling range. The top pair, good kicker. Going to be quite happy. So yeah, so with the club draw, obviously we've got that much more equity now. I mean, we're betting for value against ace jack and ace 10. I suppose some of the weaker suited aces you might have called, like ace 8 and ace 6, might also continue now with their gut shot equity. So I'm betting like just around half pot, something like that is designed to maximise the number of calls from those type of hands: ace jack, ace 10, ace 8, ace 6. So I'll just rewind for table 5 after we played out table 2. So I've missed what happened there. Still getting used to these recorded sweats, so sorry about that. So we get a great river on table 2. We've got a pot size bet left, so it's obviously best just to get it in and hope he's picked up 2 pair or something. He might call us with ace jack as well. So just see what he had there, and then okay, I'm not going to bring that on. Let's go back and have a look at table 5 a sec. So I've opened under the gun. Got called by the button, and obviously c-bet this ace high board. Because I've opened under the gun, like there's hands like ace queen, ace king in his pre-flop calling range, so I'm not betting for value on the flop, but like I'm not over the moon, and that's what leads me into this check on the turn. Although now that I've checked, it's going to weaken my perceived range, and so quite happy to check call, and we just have to evaluate on the river. So if he bets the river, I'm going to tend to like remove the ace tens from his range, I think. I mean, it's going to be close. Like, I don't think he's bluffing if he bets. And if I don't think that he's betting ace 10 for value, then the only thing I'm doing okay against if I call is ace jack, and you know, it's not a really good idea to call open to split the pot, so I'll probably be leaning to a check fold on the river there actually. I think he's going to have ace queen and even ace king in my perceived range a fair bit there, and I don't think he expects me to fold those. So okay, so we're back where we were, where we just got paid off on table 2 now. So hopefully I'll bring up what he had there. I'm still making a note on this king 6 pre-flop caller. Yeah, so like the ace 3 suited, I might consider a 3-bet bluff, but I'm against the short stack who's only pre-flop raising 8%. A small sample albeit, but there's no value in a 3-bet bluff against that type of player, and I don't really want a 3-bet. I don't really want to call pre-flop either with such a short stack. So I'm not saying it would be terrible, but so yeah. So he's called me down with second pair on the flop. Strange. Don't really know what to make of that. Don't think he can have any history on me really. This is something I'm unaware of. I mean, he could have, but nothing springs to mind from our recent play today. I played a bit on here in the last couple of days as well. The stats look fairly sensible. I suppose he feels that with the flush coming, perhaps my range is polarized, and that I'd be checking a lot of ace X's there, but with the way the flush came, like backdoor, that's not really the case. So yeah, if the flush draw was on the flop, then I could understand it more. Should have a look what happened there. I missed that. What happened on table 2? Sorry. Okay, so called against an under the gun open. I mean, I could fold this, but given that it's $2.50 instead of 3, decide to call. And I'm 3-betting this type player again. I just think, like, with his stats, this is going to be a profitable spot. So obviously we're calling on table 2 and we get there, so could bet for value, but it like kind of looks obvious I got a jack and we could be beat, so I think it's just best to just check and hope he's bluffing. We get 4-bet on table 3, so if he's up to speed on what, like, this guy's stats, then he's quite likely he's 4-bet bluffing there, but I mean, I just haven't got enough history and I haven't seen him 4-bet yet out of the 92 hands, so I've just got to give it up this time, but it's something to keep an eye on. I'm just going to check call with the straight on table 2. It's rare that he's going to bluff here, but it might happen some percentage of the time. I'd say it's more likely than me getting called by something that's not a jack. So table 4, got this guy limping again, and this guy who I was playing a bit heads up with, who's like reasonably aggressive, raises on the button, so his range for that is going to be like something playable, but I think he's going to be doing it with a lot of those playable hands, like, you know, Queen Jack suited, the type of hand that I raised with earlier, and so I think I can make what's effectively a 3-bet bluff here against this guy. I'm doing it with a hand that's got some, like, you know, got some value to it post flop. I can be called by Jack 10 suited because he's in position, etc. And I've actually got the best hand, or I can bluff the flop like this, or you know, I can just sack out on pocket jacks or something like that. Yeah, so I'm betting there, and given that we're deep, probably gonna at least bet the turn as well if I'm floated. I feel like I'm gonna get floated by some ace X and all pocket pairs, so it'd be pretty bad for me, I think, to bet this flop with the intention of giving up if called. So like, if the turns are blank, I'm just gonna fire again on the turn. And then we'll see about the river. So I'm going to wrap this video up sort of at the next suitable moment, and we'll resume this for another lesson, so please look out for that. Ace 9 suited here under the gun. Not a great board, but given that it's like Queen 5 6, there's, you know, if it was like Queen 8 9, 9 would pair us, you know, Queen 7 8 or something like that, or I'd be less likely to c-bet, but I think a c-bet's okay here as a bluff, especially given our strong perceived range. But like checking and giving up, I think would be okay too. Yeah, and so whilst we're called by some flush draws and pairs between sixes and queens, I don't really feel comfortable enough to continue barreling. And I suppose that should perhaps lead me to check the turn more, or to check the flop more often. But yeah, I mean, I probably would have got him off that on the turn. Problem is, like, some flush draws are just going to continue, and then I'm going to be in a tricky spot on the river. So, yeah, I mean, I think the way I played it was okay. Check giving up on the flop, I think. Betting flop, giving up on turn, or betting flop, betting turn, I think they're all reasonable. So let's end it there, and I'll continue this review in this session for our next lesson. So thanks for listening, and please look out for the next one.